There comes a point in everyone's lives where they first learn how to drive. For me, I was 18, sat next to my father in an abandoned car park. Now, this might seem innocuous, but any person from a migrant family will know of the long and arduous process of learning something from their father. You see, there will be lots of yelling. There will be lefts that suddenly turn into rights. And, of course, there will be conflict. Because with immigrants, there always is. Now, to everyone else, this might seem strange and disruptive. Stories of learning and growth, no matter the hardship, eventually lead to success. But in Australia, where almost 7 million immigrants are caught between cultures, my familial friction is a common struggle. You see, we are forced to navigate two worlds in our lives, the East inside our homes, and the West outside it. Throughout history, stories of our human nature have been a common language for us to understand each other. But the stories that depicted my cultural divides were painfully absent during my childhood. When I was at odds with my family, it felt like the weight of my entire world was on my shoulders. But with recent efforts to bolster the representation of all peoples, finally witnessing these stories was a form of cultural catharsis. Seeing a film such as Crazy Rich Asians was a symbol of the diverse Hollywood I had always wanted. But that always felt too perfect. In those stories, the hero got what they wanted. In our stories, we face the difficult truth that life is complicated. Not everything ends the way we want it to. Getting my license soon proved to be the most frustrating experience of my life. I would be constantly yelled at for the smallest mistakes. And when I did something well, I would get nothing at all. And I would never understand why. The irresolution of immigrant life can be captured in the stories we attempt to tell ourselves, in the spaces we claim as our own. Online, the Facebook group Subtle Asian Traits is acerbically critical of repressive immigrant parenthood. On YouTube, sketch comics such as Superwog and My Johnny lampoon the chaos of the migrant household. You see, all my life, I have only wanted to understand. But what I learned through driving is that my story hasn't finished yet. Because when we tell the stories that we are, when we use the nature of our experiences as a common language, we can come to terms with our families, with what it means to be an immigrant. We begin to understand the sacrifices that our parents make. I know what my father left behind to come live in Australia. I know that he worked long hours to keep us fed, and I know that he never tolerated my mistakes because he failed his driving test too. You see, when we talk about the struggle of being an immigrant, we use the nature of our experiences as a common language. We can ultimately come to terms with ourselves. Because, as you see it, our stories are still being written and still being told. To be honest with you, I haven't finished learning how to drive. So, whenever he can, my father drives with me. There is left turns, there are right turns, there are harsh words, there are arguments, and when we finish, he walks off without a word. You see, I may not ever understand my father, but through the stories that we are on the long, unending journey of our lives, I might.
Thank you very much, Justin, for your speech. Question time.
Which do you think is more important, the preservation of our national identity or the integration of minorities?
I think it's an interesting question. Because what defines a migrant is not either of those things. It is what's caught between. Because we cannot shed what we have in our heritage. We cannot reject what we have now. You see, our only solace is in the liminal, in the spaces that we have to ourselves, the places that we can only claim as our own. And from this, what we can use to communicate with each other and tell ourselves stories of what it means to be immigrant.
Thank you.
Arctic. Can I ask, would you have preferred your father to have concentrated on positive aspects of driving, or would you have preferred the other one which you encountered?
See, I think there's a wishfulness that comes with wanting something. It's very easy to say that the grass is greener on the other side. What I think I learned, what I think I found most important, is not trying to change my father, but to understand who he is. And from that, I think I've learned to love and to accept.
Thank you. One final question.
Catalina Herrera, cultural attaché from the Embassy of Chile. You were saying that as a son of an immigrant, you struggle to understand your father. I imagine as well, from other people in Australia that are not immigrants, there must also be some sort of sometimes communication gap between who are immigrants and who are not immigrants. And I too here, like as an immigrant myself in the UK, what would you think is needed to be done to bring those people closer and get to understand each other a bit better and not judge each other?
I think it's important to tell the right stories. To tell the stories that are real. To tell the stories that people have lived. In Australia, we're seeing that right now. Not just in the media and the television, but on social media, on YouTube, in places that people have designated for themselves. And when there's an interaction between cultures, when subtle Asian traits become this global phenomenon, people understand what it means to be an immigrant. They understand that your parents will be hard on you, but they understand that they've sacrificed for you. And I think that when you tell these stories, not just the Hollywood blockbusters or the rom-coms, but the real stories of what it means to be an immigrant, then that is how we bridge the gap.